Okay, what's an escalation clause? How is it good and how is it bad? It goes both ways. Well, simply put, an escalation clause is used in a multiple offer situation where one buyer is willing to pay X amount of dollars over and above the next highest net bid the seller received. So simply, I'll pay $1,000 over the highest offer. Usually there's a cap, up to $300,000. You really don't want to leave yourself wide open and not put a cap on it. Now, if you're paying cash, it's great. No problem. You know you got the cash. If you're doing a mortgage, problem, because it has to appraise. And if you've raised the price over what the market really seems to be in the comparables, then you're going to have to bring the difference in cash. So I normally advise the buyer who wants to do an escalation clause and has a loan to write right on the contract, in the event the property does not appraise for the full sales price, the buyer agrees to pay the difference in cash so as not to affect the loan. Because if you didn't put that in there and it didn't appraise, then you wouldn't get the loan. And a smart seller is going to know that, and they're not going to want to take your offer with the risk that it might not appraise, and then they'd have to renegotiate, or the loan would fall apart, or the house would come back on the market. So that's a catch when you're doing a mortgage and you're doing an escalation clause. You better have extra cash to pay the difference if it doesn't appraise. Now, what happens if there are multiple offers with multiple escalation clauses? That's when it can get really crazy, because you can use one escalation clause to escalate another one up to its highest bid. That can happen. But also, by giving your cap, you're pretty much telling the seller, I'm willing to pay $300,000. And the seller could look at you and say, I've got 5 offers with all different escalation clauses. You're a cash offer and you're willing to pay $300,000. I'll take yours. Or terms in an offer are not confidential. So the seller can say, buyer A, you offered me $295, but buyer C offered me $300. Buyer A, if you give me the $300, I'll take yours and not that one. And the seller can, and the agent can, with the seller's permission, divulge the terms of another offer to a different buyer. It can get absolutely crazy with multiple offers and multiple escalation clauses. In fact, when I do it, I have to put everything in a grid so that we can actually compare the offers straight across the board when I'm representing the seller. When you're representing the buyer, it's really crazy too, because you don't know what you're competing against, but it's what we have in this market today. So, escalation clauses. If you're going to use one, talk through it. Talk through the scenarios about what happens if I offer this and that and this, and how could it be played out. It takes a little bit to come up with what's actually going to be the best way to write your escalation clause. I hope that helps.